Hello there, I'm Liberlita, and today we're talking about chapters 1 and 2 of Wind and Truth. This video contains spoilers for every Cosmere book and the preview chapters that Brandon has read at other cons. So if you don't want to be spoiled, then click off now. This week's previews begin first by establishing which POVs we'll be seeing in the section. Instead of the standard Part 1, it's titled Day 1. It's exciting to see how Brandon will spend all these millions of words covering only 10 days. Also, it's starting off with Kaladin and Shallan, which really hits me in the feels. It reminds me of Way of Kings and how it started off with just Kaladin and Shallan's POVs. God, it's crazy that this arc is coming to an end, and we won't be getting any more mainline Stormlight archive for 10 years. Now that I'm done being nostalgic and sappy, the picture presented at the beginning of the chapter is the spread that Shallan and Adolin saw in Rhythm of War. I believe the face in the bottom right corner is Ba Ado Mishram. The first day's epigraphs is from Knights of Wind and Truth. I'll go into my speculation about these epigraphs later. I do wonder how the epigraphs will be divided up since we're doing a countdown of days. Is it going to be different epigraphs for each day? Will there still be 4 or 5 different epigraphs throughout the days? Or will it all be Knights of Wind and Truth? The chapter begins with Kaladin feeling good, which is completely out of character. Shame on you, Sanderson. All you're doing is fueling the theory that he's going to die, which I don't subscribe to. Kaladin feels good despite everything that happened, which is nice that he's taking steps to move forward. So comments that at least the war is almost over, which I'm sure is the case. Certainly nothing interesting will be happening in books 6 through 10. I look forward to it being very boring. The text reminds the audience that if Dalinar loses, he will be forced to join Odium, become fused, and help conquer the Cosmere. This makes me think that by the end it won't happen. I think Era 2 would be very different if Dalinar was rampaging through the Cosmere. Though, on the other hand, maybe Odium is still afraid of Harmony like Brandon said, or he's just letting Autonomy deal with it first. Maybe his plan is for Autonomy to weaken Scadrial, that way his army can come in. Maybe in Era 3 we'll see some conflict. Kaladin also becomes concerned that Radiance would join Odium in his conquests because so many people thirst for war, even without the influence of the Unmade. Which is an interesting line and makes me think this is foreshadowing for the Cosmere War. I recently did a video on the Sunlit Man, discussing the implications as to what's going on during the Space Age. It touches on how that book may be implying that Rosharans are aggressive towards other planets. I do think that eventually Roshar will gain this reputation, but I don't know if it's starting at this point with Dalinar rampaging through the Cosmere. But who knows? As Kaladin is out on the balcony with his shard plate spread, he hears a voice. It is being called the wind itself. So is it remnants of honor, cultivation, an unmade, Odium doing some sneaky stuff? Kaladin asks Syl if the wind is alive, and she responds that everything is alive. We then cut to Shallan and Shadesmar. This section and another part of it was read by Brandon at a con, and I'm a bit surprised that it is here so early in the book. Then again, this book is potentially only going to be covering 10 days, so I guess we gotta keep moving. Shallan is sitting with Testament and Pattern, showing the differences between a Deadeye and a live Spren. The text reminds the audience that Shallan made Testament a Deadeye after killing her mother. Now, most people assume that Chana is Shallan's mom, and she was the herald who died during Gavilar's prologue. I think the prologue focusing on Chana and reminded the audience that Shallan's mom died is very much confirming the theory. Also, I wonder how much Pattern or even Testament knows about Shallan's mother and what it all means. We get a comparison between Maya and Testament, and how the two Spren both broke, but in different ways. Could it also be influenced by Deadeye's relationship to a person? Maya has a relationship with Adolin, and in Rhythm of War we see her somehow feeding off his energy. Meanwhile, Shallan is forced to forget Testament due to her trauma. Shallan is confused why Testament isn't resentful to Shallan, and I really like how this scene is handled. Shallan was a victim of abuse and has extreme trauma. In real life, this can often cause people to lash out. This is especially true for children, who can't foresee the consequences of their actions and don't have the ability to regulate extreme emotions to calm themselves down from lashing out unjustly. The book recognizes that Shallan was a child when she broke her bond with Testament. You know, maybe we should put an age restriction on these things. Though maybe something is going on because Gavilar should definitely be already swearing his oath by now. Pattern remarks that he doesn't think Shallan will kill him, and if I remember correctly, in Words of Radiance, he had not so much fear, but of resigned acceptance that Shallan would kill him. At the time prior to these latest books, it was theorized that it was because of what the Radiants did, but it's more than likely to do with what Shallan did with Testament. However, it's nice to see that development. Also, mayhaps foreshadowing Pattern's death? I'm not so sure. I think it's more likely that Shallan will kill Pattern the same way that Kaladin did to Syl in Words of Radiance, and she'll have to admit the truth about her mother. She gets Pattern back, probably gets Testament back, and then, I don't know, goes to Omega God mode because she has 2 bonds. Pattern points out that Shallan and Testament's break happened when she was a child, and without capital I intent, so the break is ragged instead of a clean cut. In some ways, this makes it worse, but capital C connections still persist, which makes me want to see what would happen if a Radiant tried to bring back a Spren that they broke their oaths with full capital I intent. Pattern says that he doesn't think words again would heal Testament, which implies that they would under normal circumstances. It is also confirmed that in the past, Deadeyes did not exist, which is something that I assumed because they always felt like something different. The cryptid also explains that they thought the recurrence would be painful but survivable. Instead, something had gone wrong. First, I'd be interested to see how this affected the Radiants themselves, and if the pain went both ways. I wonder if there's some kind of connection between Deadeye Sharpblades making the holder's eyes lighter in a different way to a Radiant. If I remember correctly, when Moash gets his Shardblade in Words of Radiance, his eyes didn't turn the color of whatever order the Spren had once been. Instead, his natural dark eye color became light, so maybe there's a connection. Second of all, it seems like they assumed it would be like how it worked when Radiants in the past broke their oaths. However, it resulted in the Deadeyes. I assume this has something to do with Ba-Ada Mishram, because everything does apparently. Also, side note, Testament's robes bend more naturally like cloth than Pattern's does, which is odd. Finally, this chapter ends with a very sweet line from Shallan thanking her for protecting her, for coming to her when she was young and protecting her. She doesn't remember everything, but she's very thankful for it. On to chapter 2, which is family. The paragraph is quite interesting. We have capital W, wind, which sounds like it's connected to what's reaching out to Kaladin. Later in the chapter, the mysterious voice seems to be connected to Shinovar as well, though I'll get into that later. I took a peek at some of the online discourse, and it seems like people are speculating that Cal is writing this book. Or it's too obvious that Cal's writing this book, so it can't be him. I'm more leaning towards it's not Cal, not because it's too obvious, but it doesn't really feel right. Maybe Zeth, or maybe some kind of journal like the crystals that Renan found in Oathbringer, I think. It feels very much like a journal. Also, and to be honest, it's a bit too poetic for Kaladin or really any Alethi man. This chapter also mentions that the light is different in the tower because of Navani, which is nice because Navani is warm and inviting. God, could you imagine if Dalinar bonded the sibling? Later in the chapter, it says that there are more Spren around, which is interesting. We also get to see Orden. What a cutie. I'm still holding out hope that Orden and Gavinor become friends. I think they would have such a cute dynamic. I really hope that Gav and Orden become relatively important characters in the next arc. Obviously, they're not going to be flashback characters, but I really hope they'll have, like, Adolin or Navani levels of relevance. I just really like them. In this chapter, it says Kaladin had lately become prone to overreacting to loud noises, including ones that, upon reflection, were obviously nothing dangerous, and which makes me really sad. I think it's alluding to some form of PTSD that usually soldiers get. Syl has taken to giving indications on her visibility based on her clothing. Her more feminine aesthetic means that she's visible to others, while her bridge form uniform is only for Kaladin. I feel like there's a point being made here, but I can't quite place it yet. Let me know in the comments if you can think of anything. Kaladin laments that the world is basically on the brink of destruction, and Tef is dead, but he's playing with his brother. Just enjoy your well-deserved break, baby cakes. Also, it's very funny that Syl is called Phil. People have speculated that Orden has a speech impediment, and I wonder if that's what Brandon is going for, or it's just baby talk that he'll grow out of. I guess we'll see in 10 years. This mysterious voice continues to be mysterious and vague about what it wants. You would probably have more help if you were a bit more forward, mysterious voice. Now that Navani has control of the tower, showers can be activated by speaking or touching. I wonder if these are the fabled Elantra sweet showers. Do petty journalists convene to give a good cry because their subject matter is boring? Kaladin wonders if he'll ever see Rock again. And I swear to God, if Rock and Kaladin never meet again like 10 soon event, I will riot. He talks about the pain of not seeing Rock is distinct from the pain of losing Teft and the loss of Moash. Or what he thought was Moash, because Moash is a little rat, and he will not get a redemption arc. Mark my words. The chapter continues, and Kaladin worries about the soldiers fighting for the barren, uninhabited land just so one side can claim it. He asks the mysterious, overly vague voice if this is the storm that's coming. The mysterious, overly vague voice says, no, it's worse. Gee, how wonderful. The voice encourages Kaladin to listen to the bondsmith. Kaladin immediately thinks of Dalinar, so here's hoping the mysterious, overly vague voice isn't referring to Navani. Also, as I said before, if it is related to Dalinar, then it's probably linked to Shinovar. Overall, this voice is a bit suspicious. I didn't feel this way with the sibling in Rhythm of War, but that could be because it was pretty obvious what was going on with Navani in that book. Maybe it's a trick, or maybe it's just some force that needs Kaladin's help. There's more cute bonding moments between his family. His parents think it's weird that he's familiar with literal religious figures, but honestly, I still think that Kaladin might be getting his own religion, just based on the people wearing his brand. So they'll have to get used to it. The chapter ends with a hug between brothers. Kaladin strides out to meet his destiny, feeling like he has control for the first time in years. Very hyped, though I'm pretty sure the next thing he's gonna do is take a music lesson from Hoyd. Poor lad. These chapters felt very short, but were intriguing. I was a little bit mean to the mysterious, overly vague voice, but I am interested to see where it goes. What did you think of these chapters? Comment below. And for right now, that's all I have for you today. Remember, there's always another secret.